Yeah. So I imagine most of them are orphans. They don't have family contacts anymore. No one outside the compound to help.
A lot are orphaned, but the ones that do have family, even then, there's a lot of stigma from their families because they've been soldiers, they've killed, they've been on the battlefield, and it's really hard for them to return home to their families, particularly when their neighbours' kids haven't come home. And so they face a lot of blame, a lot of accusation from the community, and they find it really hard to get jobs, especially the women that come back, because if you're a woman that's maybe in her 20s now and you were abducted as a child, you might be coming back with children that you've had in captivity in the bush, and coming back you're just seen as damaged goods, and getting married is not a prospect for a lot of these young women.
So what do World Vision do? What sort of long-term goals are there for the kids?
Well, what we saw them doing was absolutely excellent. So they spend 3 months at the centre getting rehabilitated through a lot of trauma counselling and a lot of psychosocial and mental health support. But they're not abandoned after that. Once they go out into the communities, they have community workers that run mothers groups for the child mothers that return with kids, and they set up restaurants and small businesses so that the women can have income generating projects for themselves. For the men, they run carpentry courses in mechanics, engineering, basic stuff that they're able to do in their villages and in their towns when they go home, so that they can be a vital part of their communities, even though they might not have finished schooling because they've missed so much.
Yeah, so that's like is it called the Grameen Bank, or the concept of a small loan?
Oh, yeah, the Grameen Bank, something like that, yeah. Who are doing the trust loans. There's about 250 different organisations just in Gulu itself. Yeah. And I think that's one of them. Along with TIER, and I know there's some other organisations that are
because they do like
doing a lot of small business loans.
Cooperative loans, and that sort of concept. Yeah,
and that's great to see that. You even see that in the internally displaced people's camps, which are basically refugee camps within Uganda, places where over 2 million people have been forced to flee from this war. But even inside the camps, you've got these income generating projects, small business loans, where people are setting up little places where they'll basically sell food to people until they can pay back their loan and increase the size of their business, take on other staff. It's really good to see.
That's great.
The resilience of the people there is astounding.
Yeah, you do find that in developing countries.
You really do. Yeah.
So how long were you in Uganda, did you say?
It was a total of 5 months.
5 months, yeah.
From January to May in 2009.
That's enough time to change your life.
Yeah, absolutely. We got used to the culture. We had a little house that we were renting through World Vision just in the community there, and compared to some of the houses around town, it was a pretty nice place. But compared to a house in Australia, it was very different. There was bare concrete floors. There was no shower head, just a pipe that came out of the wall and kind of hit you in the head when you turned on the water. And there was a big garbage bin outside because they had no garbage collection service. The garbage bin was basically a 6-foot hole in the ground, about 3 metres by 4 metres across. You had to be really careful if you were taking a leak in the night, not to step in it. But basically you just chuck all your rubbish in there until it fills up. And you can either do one of two things. You get a couple of goats to come in for a week and eat it all down, or you pour some petrol in there and light it on fire and let it burn for a few days until it's back down to nothing.
Very environmentally.
My wife is a big recycler, and she was not too happy with the system.
No,
that's all they got.
Yes, yeah. Oh well.
It's good that you and your wife are sort of eye to eye in the same passion in this. Where do you think this will take you now? You've come back from that. You're still processing all that sort of stuff and even writing songs about it. What's your next step, do you think?
I think for me, I wasn't always passionate about Africa. I think the first thing I saw was when I was a kid, seeing the Rwandan genocide on the news back in the 90s. And I didn't think about it, honestly, from that moment till I met my wife. And I met her on a camp, and she couldn't shut up about Africa. The Lion King was her favourite movie. Her favourite music was the soundtrack to The Power of One. And on her wall, instead of movie stars and boy bands, was gorillas. So I thought she was really into hairy men for a while. But, you know, she just had this huge passion for Africa. She just loved it. And that rubbed off on me and has continued to. And her passion and commitment to justice, both in Africa and here, has really fed into my songwriting. And I think in a similar way, she's just as passionate about the music I make and has been really supportive of my musical journey. But from here, I guess it's a process of figuring out what next. You know, once you have an experience like that does mess up your world so much, that really does change your focus and your direction in life. Life, I guess, after that is not so much for me about just being a rock star or finding success in music. I think more than ever, I want to share a message of justice and tell people about injustice around the world, here in Australia and in other more developed nations, because I think we just have so much to offer. You know, if you have a pair of shoes, if you own a car, and if you rent a house or own a house, it puts you in the top 1% of the richest people in the world. And for a lot of Australians, that's the case. I just really solemnly believe that we have so much to give and so much to offer for people in need. And, you know, you see shows like Go Back to Where You Came From on SBS last week, so interesting. It brings up so many different issues. But I think if people do want refugees to be here, then we need to act. If people don't want refugees to be here, we need to act. And we can act in both ways justly, because I really think it's important to consider that refugees often really want to stay in their home country if it was a better situation for them to live in.
Yeah.
So there's things that we can do here, buying fair trade, for example, sponsoring a child. There's so many different community projects that World Vision, for example, are doing around the world to improve the living conditions in countries that won't force people to feel the need to get on a boat. And sometimes there's situations of war that are putting incredible pressure on people that we got a glimpse of through that show. But I think it's so important that we engage, and that's, I guess, the main focus of my music, wanting people to take action against injustice and actually pull their finger out and do something to help. Yeah.